You are listening to 15 Minutes, the show with Osiris Munir, only on LA Talk Radio.
Hey everybody, how are my kindreds out there today? What's going on? Wow, it's been a long week, lots happening. I am not really much, not that I don't pay attention to politics, but I don't let it run my forward or backwards movement or whatever way I'm moving on the planet for my sense of purpose. But there's a lot going out there. I don't know what the Musk thing is. I've never and lived long enough to have seen a lot of presidential situations and circumstances, but I have to say this is a new one on even me. And for those of us that have lived long enough to see a lot of different presidents and people come in and out of the country in terms of how they are leading our country, it's a different ball game. Definitely the age of Aquarius. So how's everybody? I know. So let's talk today. I have a special guest. He's been here before, but I want to talk about him a little bit after I talk about this. We're going to shout out to our sponsor. Yay, Kevin Pike, senior real estate and probate specialist of Coldwell Banker. Look at that face. 818-571-1508. Again, 818-571-1508. Mr. Kevin Pike. Go talk to him. He's amazing. I'm telling you, he's like one of us. He's a kindred. So feel comfortable talking to him about any and everything you need to do. Now, so let's get back to the red carpet thing. The talk of the town, I think for about 3-4 days after on the Oscars, our 97th, was Halle Berry looking stunning. So I don't know what you're doing, Mr. Van Hunt, but keep doing it because you are pouring love, and I'm sure she's pouring love into herself as well. But she looked fabulous in her cherubelle glass or metal, whatever it was made of. It was glass because it was mirrored dress, and she planted a kiss in front of the wife on Mr. Fine, Adrian Brody. And I loved it. It was risque. And then I found a little bit about the history of what happened. But the guest we have on today, drum roll, author, Emmy Award winner, Grammy nominee, writer, and radio show host, along with being probably one of the funniest people that I know that actually make me laugh when I get it. Geoffrey Mark. Hey, Geoffrey. Hey.
Hey.
Hey, look at your outfit. Look at that. To me, this is Hollywood. This is where Hollywood has come from. I mean, the glamour, the style. In terms of, I've seen a little bit on Beyonce. I've seen a lot on my baby girl, Doechii, because she reminds me of the Aaliyah of hip hop. To me, she's like the baby girl. She's so cute and she's so real. And, I just love her to pieces. And I love, let the kids fly, let them fly. I like that. So anyway, but Geoffrey looking like a combination of Liberace and Elton John. And of course, Geoffrey Mark. Let's talk old Hollywood, new Hollywood, and everything in between today.
Well,
so
I was just having a very similar conversation. I visited my friends, the Ricardos and the Mertzes, over on 623 68th Street. And they're with you. They have so much on their minds about these things. So let's talk. And I can tell you what they thought too. Because
what did you guys have for lunch? What was the menu?
Oh, it was finger sandwich. Lucy is very specific about luncheon. It's finger sandwiches, a Jell-O mold, nuts and fruits, and coffee served in a silver coffee thing. So very elegant because that's who Lucy is. Yeah. I'm not a big Jell-O fan, but she insists on serving it every single time.
Oh my God. So you guys had a really kind of swag kind of luncheon there. So let's talk. I know that you brought up the subject because I know you watched the Oscars and all the glamour. Now, in the old Oscar days where they really, everything was the Met, in my opinion, because everybody was dressed to the T. You were behind this kind of guard where they looked like they twinkled and they were stars, and you really didn't know much about them other than what you read or you heard. So there really was much more mystery. So, in terms of etiquette on the red carpet from then to now, we're talking about now people plant big kisses like Halle, Miss Berry planted on Adrian Brody. People are they're showing their boobs now. We've got legs showing. We've got crotch showing, depending on the star and what they're doing. So, what did Lucy and Ricky and Ethel and those guys have to say about all of that now, in terms of what is switch? What used to be a no now is a go.
They're angry. They're angry. Like Lucy is always very jealous because once upon a time, these stars all belonged to a studio, and the studio did their hair, did their makeup, dressed them up because they had to look glamorous and handsome and beautiful, but not anything that would be sexual or racy or off color, because you couldn't have that. And I everybody has different opinions of how it is now. Lucy Ricardo said, what was wrong with the way they used to do it? What was wrong with the way of having women in gorgeous gowns and having glamour and class? And Fred Mertz said, what's wrong with the way it is now? I like looking at the boobs. So everybody has a different take on it. And, Lucy asked Ricky, how would he feel if someone like Halle Berry would come and just, plant a big kiss on him? And Ricky's response was, well, lucky her if she got to do that. He assumed that she would have an orgasm immediately because she kissed him, because he's Ricky Ricardo. And he said she was quite a muchacha. And she said, I'll rattle your muchacha if you ever do that in real life. So everybody's got a different take on how things are today.
Okay, so but back in the day, someone said to me that Ricky was hot on the girls, or the girls were hot on Ricky, or something like that. And I'm like, I don't know. I don't think that anyone would have gone up to him and kissed him in front of Lucy, no matter what was going on. I don't think that would have happened. And I think that if that had happened, would have been some of the drawback. What would have happened? They would have got X'd out of the theater.
It actually did happen once or twice.
What happened?
There was an actress named Joy Lansing who did a film with Mr. Ricardo. In fact, she was in 2 films. One he made in Hollywood and one he made in Miami. And she was amply endowed by our creator, shall we say. Lucy and Ethel were very jealous of her. And on the red carpet, she walked up to him, rubbed her chest up against him, and said, "Ooh, Mr. Ricardo, I get such a boot out of you." And Lucy separated them, and she gave Joy Lansing a boot that sent her flying off the red carpet, because she wasn't having any of that. It isn't that she didn't trust Ricky exactly, but she didn't trust the other woman at all.
And they in the glamorous days, I think the hottest thing was Richard Burton and Elizabeth Taylor. They always had something going on. Either they were in relationships with other people or in a relationship with each other, or and then but it was always something exciting happening within the celebrities without every single thing leaking out to the press. or
No,
without everything knowing.
but it gave people the fodder to gossip. Let me tell you, on the every other Wednesday afternoon Fine Arts League, where Lucy and Ethel are co-presidents, boy, do they talk about Elizabeth Taylor and Richard Burton. Gossip, 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 gossip. Because their lives aren't particularly glamorous. Now, Lucy's is because of Ricky, but all the other girlfriends she has, they're ordinary women, and they're jealous. And that was good for publicity, without giving out specific details. Women like Marilyn Monroe and Elizabeth Taylor and Joy Lansing and other great beauties, it made all the women jealous and it turned all the men on. And some of the men, like Ricky Ricardo, would pretend, but would look at the side of his eye, And there were men like Fred Mertz who would have thrown Ethel under the bus to have one evening with any of them. So
really?
it's yes. There is, between you and me, there is not really a love match. He's a lot older than she is. And, he goes to bed at 9 o'clock to save up his energy. Unless Ricky will get him a date, then he'll go out at 3 o'clock in the morning because that's what he's been saving his energy for. So everybody's got a different take on glamour and the battle of the sexes. And old Hollywood gave you the glamour and the battle, but without any specific details, without any body parts showing. Everybody looked splendid because the studios controlled it. Today, you have people, everyone's independent, no one's under a contract. And if you're going to walk a red carpet, you have to have your own designers or your own dressmakers or your own stylists. I do all of this for myself. I don't have someone doing it for me.
You're badass.
Well, thank you so much. Well, we've discussed this before. There was a wonderful comedian named Rip Taylor who did well. But one day, Liberace sat him down and said, look, you're wonderful on the stage, but you're dressed like a blanking accountant. You need some glamour in your outfits. You need some glamour in your act. And that skyrocketed. Rip Taylor became a big star in comedy. Well, Rip came to see me decades ago perform. And he said, Geoffrey, you are magic on the stage, but you dressed like a blanking accountant. So from Liberace to Rip Taylor to me, and certainly Elton John is also an inspiration. But I had to do this myself. It isn't like I don't have a Don Loper original in my closet. I actually do have one. The Ella Fitzgerald Foundation bought me a Don Loper original just so I can say I have one in my closet. But today we're all dependent upon ourselves, and the people, the big stars, hire stylists, and sometimes they look great, and sometimes you just sort of go, what were they thinking?
Well, when it came to, let's dig into that a little bit more. When it came to the etiquette on the carpet, and I've been on both sides. I've been on the red carpet. I've been in front of the camera I've been on the other side behind the scenes helping with the people come out. And I know that by the time your PR people get there, your stylist people, the makeup people, you're behind the scenes, you got to go on, you're 20 minutes. Okay, you're number 5. You're going to go on at 1:45. They're going to go off, blah, blah, blah. By the time you get out there, there's a certain posture etiquette that one should have. And all of that's changed now. People come up to people with cell phones and they just take their photo, whereas that used to cost money. It's cost money for you to have a celebrity's photo or be with a celebrity. It was paid. Now everyone just takes it for granted. They can go up on the red carpet and hang out with the stars, except for places like the Oscars and the Met. So
red carpets have changed.
Explain.
Originally, let's go back to originally.
Yes.
So red carpets were originally and only for Hollywood film premieres. Major films that had premieres, the movie theater, whether it was Grauman's Chinese or Grauman's Egyptian or the El Capitan, or in your town, whatever the big movie theater was. They would literally roll out a red carpet from the front door of the theater to where the celebrities would be attending. You didn't have 17 or 30 or 50 different press there, and you had to talk to each and every one. You had fans in bleachers on either side who were sometimes volunteers and sometimes paid to be there to make it look like you're a big star. You've been dressed and coiffed and made up by the studio before you left the house. They hired a limousine for you. And usually there was one person who was hosting it for whatever radio network was carrying it. There was a newsreel person or two or three who would either just take video of on film, you being interviewed and you're coming out of your car. That was the whole red carpet. The red carpet experience lasted maybe 4 or 5 minutes for each celebrity. And then the celebrities went inside. It wasn't this madhouse of you're having to pose for, you go to a red carpet. I've walked, I don't know how many red carpets in my life. You've got 2 or 3 photographers. You've got 30 photographers. Each one wants their shot. Each one wants you to pose differently. Then you have all the media who are there, both networks and cable, and today platforms. And you want to talk to them all. They want to talk to you. There's someone assigned to walk you through the gauntlet to make sure that you're seen by the people who really want to see you. And maybe you skip a few if it's very, very busy. A red carpet today takes an hour for each celebrity to get through. And and then all the people around you, all the looky-loos were before they were in controlled things behind, you couldn't get near the celebrities. Today, they hover around you like gnats and flies, click, 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 click with their phones. And you try to be nice and you try to give autographs and you try to make everybody happy. But it's work now. Walking a red carpet isn't just, oh, I'm going to a party, happy, happy. It's work. And we all know that it's work. And we try to look our best. I happen to look better than every other man who's there.
Yeah, of course.
But we accept that. And it isn't that I don't enjoy it. I love it. I'm a big ham. I love talking to the press, as you know. I love doing podcasts and radio and television shows. Love that. Some people don't. Some people choose to not even walk the red carpets. George Chakiris, he and I are very close. George has decided, unless it's for something specific he's in or has done, he doesn't want to walk red carpets anymore. He doesn't want. He's 92. He's done it enough. Other people will push you out of the way to get onto the red carpet, even if they haven't been invited. The glamour of Hollywood, the idea of being in the spotlight, seems to intrigue everyone. Now, through the years, look at all the different ways Lucy Ricardo has tried to grab the spotlight from Ricky to be in show. And you know what? It turns out she's a pretty talented lady.
Very.
But that wasn't what Ricky and Lucy agreed on when they got married. He was going to be the star of the show, and she was going to be the homemaker, the woman who took care of the house, took care of the child, and made him happy. That was their agreement. But almost from the beginning, Lucy Ricardo felt that she had more to offer life, and she wasn't going to let Ricky, however much she did adore and does adore him, get in her way. So she did every possible thing she could to get into the act, to get into the films, to get into whatever she could. And I meet so many people out in life who think they're in show business. They're not, but they know people like me, or they know maybe better celebrities than I, bigger. And they think because they know them that they're in show business. And no,
they're not.
No, they're not.
Even now, I don't even know how to handle and I'm sure Lucy and Ethel and Ricky, I say Mr. and Mrs. because I don't know them personally, and I feel kind of, I don't call celebrities by their first name unless I know them. To me, that's for their family and close friends that to call them by their first name. I still say Mr. and Mrs., even though it may seem a bit old fashioned. In my opinion, it's respect.
No,
I don't know you to
absolutely.
be,
Look,
you know.
I've appeared at the Tropicana, so
Yeah.
I am a peer of Ricky's because I've been in his nightclub. I've sung there and done comedy. But yes, I think referring to people by their last name is very respectful. There are many people in show business I admire who I don't know, and I refer to them as Miss or Mister and show the respect. We deserve it. Like any other business, show business is really difficult. And if one breaks through and one becomes a celebrity or a big star, you have no idea the hard work that it took to get there. They deserve the respect.
And where is the stat? I mean, I know you got when you had lunch. I wanted one of the questions that I wanted you to ask them was I know that Ricky had a lot of that he has a lot of things that is he an immigrant?
Ricky immigrated from Cuba
Okay,
after the Batista Revolution and before Castro.
Cuban immigrant, and then comes and marries Miss Lucy there. And then here we have this whole thing, and how are they handling that? How are they dealing with
Pushback.
that?
There was pushback. Believe me, there was pushback.
In what way?
Mrs. McGillicuddy, Lucy's mother, until the baby was born, she didn't even acknowledge that they were married.
What?
Mrs. McGillicuddy lives up in Jamestown, which is upstate New York near the Canadian border. They're very conservative people up there. And in her eyes, her marrying a Cuban meant she had a mixed marriage. And it made for trouble for Lucy. Don't you think those girls in the Wednesday Afternoon Fine Arts League, yeah, they thought Ricky was really hot and wish they had a husband as hot as he was. But don't you think behind her back, they gossiped how she married somebody who wasn't white and tisk, tisk, tisk and raised eyebrows and baloney like that? And then in Ricky's career, because he had a wife who was Caucasian and redheaded and had a Scottish background, he got some pushback from his own people. Why didn't you marry a Cuban girl? His own family yelled at him, why didn't you marry a Cuban girl? And especially this scatterbrain that you married, of all the white girls you could have chosen, why this one?
You chose her.
It took his family a long time to accept her. And
on both sides.
On both sides. So on both, there was drama on both sides because in their eyes, it was a mixed marriage.
And then the baby came, like, oh Lord.
Well, the baby came, and that, you know what? The baby coming kind of settled down the McGillicuddy clan. And once the Cuban relatives saw how well little Ricky was being brought up, they loved Lucy for being such a good mother to him. So the baby calmed things down.
Interesting.
But not in the press.
Wow. So how long, I mean, did the fact that, and I know you talked to them about this, and I'm being a little nosy and curious here, but
it's okay.
How long did it take them to adjust to all of the pushback that they felt? Because they not only had to deal with pushback, they had to go on and work together on the stage. Yes. So how long,
Lucy and Ricky were married for 11 years before the baby was born. And all during that 11-year time, they thought they couldn't have a child. They very happily tried and just never happened. But when it happened, that was the beginning of things getting better for them. And you can just watch from the time the baby is born how much better his career got. I think having the baby focused him and gave her an outlet for her incredible energy and creativity. And you know what? She managed to get on the stage in his nightclub act. And in fact, Lucy became a television star because she did a morning program, which was very successful. That was just like the Today Show. And she was the
morning program did she do?
Follow me here. She did a morning program where she was the girl Friday. Now, Ricky allowed it, thinking that she was going to fail. Turns out she didn't fail. She was a huge success. But you know what? She missed being the housewife, and she missed taking care of her child. And she found out that, lo and behold, all those years she wanted to be a star, once she became one, she'd rather be the housewife and the mother. So it's funny how that went
And
full
the cycle came
circle
around.
for her.
Mm-hmm. And then as they matured in their relationship and they really meshed in terms of working together on the set, was what a lot I've heard now. This is why I love talking to people that actually know versus Hollywood gossip and Hollywood knows. Did Ricky become a star because of Lucy, the other way around, or was it both of them working together?
No. Keep in mind that Ricky Ricardo was a nightclub and recording star who also made movies and eventually bought his nightclub and owned it. Lucy Ricardo was always a housewife, except when she could infiltrate Ricky's act, and then eventually did appear in a film and did do television, and she achieved her goal and found out that her goal wasn't what she really wanted. Because we're talking about Lucy and Ricky Ricardo. Look at Fred and Ethel. They've been stars in vaudeville. And when vaudeville died, so did their career. So Fred took his earnings and his savings, and they bought that apartment house on 623 68th Street. And they always regretted it. They always wished they'd stayed in show business. And were kind of jealous of Lucy and Ricky and the glamour they had.
But was that before they got when you talked to them? Were they the vaudeville? Was it before or after they got on the set with Lucy and Ricky that they were?
You keep using the word set. You're confusing our audiences out there.
I'm sorry.
Yes.
I'm in show business, so set means when you go on
home.
and you do
They're
your
home.
show.
Yes.
The show.
No, Fred and Ethel were happy to have this financial security of owning the building. It wasn't a small building. Each floor had at least 4 apartments. There were at least 5 floors. So they had 20 tenants. A 20 apartment building is not a little itty bitty building. So they had money. It's just that Fred was really, really cheap and didn't let Ethel spend money on glamour like she would have wanted. And Fred and Ethel were not as happily married as Lucy and Ricky were. Where if Lucy and Ricky had a fight, they could make up and settle in the bedroom. Fred and Ethel, not so much. The age gap, and Fred and Ethel, they're very nice people. I love spending time with them. But Ethel is nowhere near as beautiful as Lucy. And Fred, Ricky is like one of the big studs of show business. Fred, maybe when he was young, he was a stud in vaudeville. Maybe that's how he got Ethel. But by now that's long gone, and so there's jealousy there. There's jealousy there.
Probably. Did they meet on together in vaudeville? Fred and Ethel. Did they meet? Is that where they met? Both were on the stage.
Ethel was doing theater in Albuquerque, her hometown.
Oh wow!
And Fred came through Albuquerque as a star of a vaudeville show. It was a headliner. Fred Mertz introduced a couple of songs that became classics, like My Melancholy Baby and Carolina in the Morning, which Fred and Ethel used to sing together. And she fell in love with him, and they got married, and they became a vaudeville team. And Fred dropped his vaudeville partner, Barney Kurtz, and brought in Ethel as his partner. And until vaudeville went away, they did well enough to buy a 20 apartment building. Oh. But once vaudeville ended, the only career they had in show business was through Ricky. See, so Ricky was offering a pipeline not just to Lucy, but to Fred and Ethel, so that everybody got their creative juices. Because creativity that goes doesn't get used turns to depression, and these people were not about to get depressed. Let me tell you.
And so, out of the 4 of them, Ricky is the one that's leading everybody, and he's the one that kind of kickstarted everybody's career, is what you're saying? Because he already owned a club and he was singing and doing some movies.
He restarted Fred and Ethel's career
Okay.
and gave Lucy a career.
Okay. Because see, that's why I love talking to people that know history, because there's a lot of talk. And then when you actually talk to people that know, because there was reference to that she gave him a career, because I guess it was called the Lucille Ball Show. And everybody thought that, and then he was an immigrant and kind of looked down.
Cyrus, my darling dear. Ricardo and Lucy Ricardo did not have a television show. They are people who live at 623 68th Street.
Yeah.
Now, if you want to talk about stars, that's a different conversation. Maybe next time I come on, we can talk about stars who are married and how do they handle that kind of a thing. But these people, Ricardo was a star, married to his beautiful redheaded wife, who was uber ambitious and was best friends with a couple who had been big vaudeville stars. And it's hard for people to understand now that what vaudeville was, a live 2-act variety show. They had it in every town all over the country from about 1890 till about 1930, when the stock market crashed and coincidentally Talking Pictures started at the same time, and coincidentally network radio started at the same time. Vaudeville, like in 2 or 3 years, almost completely disappeared, and there were dozens, if not hundreds, of very talented performers who became completely out of work and lost their careers. That's what happened to Fred and Ethel.
Okay.
That's why they bought that apartment building, to give themselves financial security. At least they'd have that, because their careers evaporated.
Wow, I'm telling you, and that's exactly why I have you on here, to clear up all the little nuances and misinformations that we all may have out here. That's why I have you on here. I like knowing the facts and the history without all of the gossip. What are the facts? You know.
Well, these are the facts. These are the facts about these 4 people, these very specific 4 people. And of course, you know, from time to time, we can talk about Carolyn Appleby and Betty Ramsey and the people that they know. We can also talk about the movie stars that Ricky worked with through the years and that Lucy got into trouble with, like John Wayne and Robert Taylor.
How did she get into trouble? How?
Well, with John Wayne, when Ricky was finally given his chance to make a film out in Los Angeles, they were staying at the Beverly Palms Hotel, which was in the heart of Hollywood. Actually, it wasn't in Beverly Hills, and they were very close to Grauman's Chinese Theater and all the footprints in the forecourt. Well, Lucy and Fred and Ethel were just, you know, looking around, and they realized that John Wayne's footprints, his block, was loose. And they decided they were going to steal it for a souvenir. And boy, did that get them into trouble. John Wayne had to make 6 different sets of those footprints, because every time he made them, somebody ruined them. And eventually he gave them enough that both Lucy and Ethel had his footprints underneath their bed in New York City.
See, these are like, wow, that's in. Let me ask you this. Let's segue a little bit, because I know you also have history with Miss Ella Fitzgerald and Ethel Merman. But let's talk about Miss Ella Fitzgerald.
Certainly.
Let's go back to the endowed women. Now, back in the day, big butts, people, breast, but not big butts, were not in style.
No,
you were
not until the last 15 years.
And why was that? What caused it to all of a sudden now you're looked upon as weird if you don't have a big butt or something weird? You know, like, okay.
There are people in Hollywood who are having collagen put in their butts. They're going to gyms to make their butts bigger because of the Kardashians. Because the Kardashians had that, and all of a sudden, all the young people, you look up to the stars. Ooh, that's glamorous. And ooh, they're hearing their men talking about how hot these ladies are. And I'm using the term ladies, not so certain they're entirely ladies, but they're definitely women.
Yes.
And styles change. In the 1950s, the bigger the breasts, the better. In the 1920s, women flattened their chests out to have an androgynous look because it was all about legs and dancing and not having gigantic breasts bopping around while you're doing with Charleston. So styles change. It changes because people get born and people get older, and it also changes because the people who make your clothing, your hair, your makeup, they want styles to change constantly because that means you're going to spend more money keeping up with everybody else. That's what the big butt thing is, keeping up with the Kardashians. I mean, that's the name of the show, for heaven's sakes.
Yeah. It is.
And you know what? Come back in 5 years and it's going to be all flat butts again. And there'll be a lot of ladies out there with great big, and it's not just the women. Now men are doing it too. You know, you're not a stud unless you got a great big bubble butt. It'll go away. It'll change again. And
he said it'll go away.
Well, no, the butts won't go away, but the fad will go away. And
I know.
something
The new
else.
Trend. Everything is a trend.
If you will notice, I never wear trendy clothes. I wear Geoffrey Mark clothes.
That's right.
My clothes are never going to go out of style. In fact, people copy me.
That's because you're on the mark. That's why his name is Geoffrey Mark. He's on the mark. I love talking to you about stuff. Before we leave Miss Gerald, I know she was well and down in the front and the back.
Yes, she was.
So when they went on, when they did their shows, whether they were performing on stage or on television, was there any kind of, were they like models where they actually had to, take away some things, add in some things just to have the right kind of appearance, or they let them go all out?
Ella was Ella. Her style changed through the years as women's clothing styles changed.
Oh, okay.
Ella bought her clothes from people like Don Loper. That's why I have a Don Loper original, because Don designed some of the things Ella wore. Ella tried her best to look glamorous. Now, Ella came from a place, she didn't understand what glamour was. She didn't know how to put on makeup. I don't mean to be crude. You ladies out there, you know that when you take a bath or a shower, there are certain things you must do to stay clean. She didn't understand that. The gay men in the Chick Web Orchestra had to teach her how to clean herself, how to put on makeup, how to wear what the proper underwear is. Like, for instance, because Ella was a large lady, here's something you don't hear about very often at all. To make her outfits look glamorous, she didn't wear a bra. She wore a bustier underneath the gowns that she wore, which kept all of her ample pulchritude in place, so she didn't jiggle. It gave her solid core for her singing, but she didn't have the straps and the stuff, and it made it easier for her to sing and look glamorous. To the best of her ability, she did. Did she always get away with it? No, not always. Her gowns were often great. Her makeup was not, because she never really learned how to put it on. And around 1960, Ella began wearing wigs. And I don't mean to be unkind. I knew her and I worked with her at the end.
Yeah, I know. I'm listening.
But if she was on the Carol Burnett show, the wig looked great. On her own, in her concerts, it looked like she bought her wigs from Woolworths. Like she paid as much as $7.95 for one of the wigs. And I don't mean $795. I mean $7.95. So sometimes the wigs ruined her glamour, but she tried. She tried so hard to be glamorous. There wasn't a stylist and a this and a that. She had a dressmaker. She did her own makeup. She picked out her own wigs. I think she even did the hair on the wigs herself.
Well, let me say this just as an insert, out of all fairness. As an African-American woman, they didn't have a lot of makeup and things to fit her either back then. So for someone, now they got everybody, everything is going. But back then, I would think that she would have had a difficult time. And I'm sure she will say herself that she had a difficult time trying to figure out what worked. She was kind of dark skinned. I don't think they had no makeup for dark skinned women. Like
Ella in skin tone was probably like you.
Okay, brown.
So she had some makeup, but I mean, like, and I'm being really serious here now. I guess because of her diet, which had a lot of salt in it. When
Mm-hmm.
Ella performed, she perspired
A lot.
profusely. And anyone who's ever worn makeup, male or female, knows if you perspire profusely, the makeup just runs off your face. So she would come out trying to look glamorous, and by the end of the evening, the makeup was gone. Maybe she still had some lipstick. She also didn't, in her concerts, wear false eyelashes. She only wore those on television when the lighting to shield her
Right.
eyes, because she had bad eyes because of diabetes.
No. Mm-hmm.
So it was hard for Ella to look glamorous. You know, the woman worked so hard. You're talking about a woman who, for golly, from the middle 1930s to the middle 1980s, so for 50 years, for half a century, this woman was on the road singing 2 shows a night, maybe 35 or 40 weeks a year, and recording albums and doing television shows and radio shows and
Mm-hmm.
making films and doing commercials and she never sat down. Uh, her respect for her audiences, I must say, all the research I've done for people through the years, I don't think any performer had more respect for you guys out there, to the point where, let's fill in the blank. Wherever you're sitting right now, you have a town or a city. And
Yes.
let's say Ella came to your town, wherever you are, and she did her concert, and she heard you. She felt your energy and your applause. And out of the maybe 16 or 17 songs she sang that night, 3 or 4 you guys went crazy for. Ella wrote them down in a book. And the next time she came to your town, she made sure to sing those 3 or 4 you really loved, and made sure that everything else was different, so that you
Oh,
never got bored in an
it's the
Ella
same thing.
Fitzgerald concert.
Hmm.
And she kept these books for years and years. Ella had, with her trio anyway, almost 300 arrangements that she could choose from. And she
Mm-hmm.
would sing what she felt like that night, what was her current release on record, and the rest of it was just to please you.
Mm-hmm.
And it was terribly. She did a concert in San Francisco at the Opera House. And this is later in her career. This is in the early 90s. And she was getting old, and she was having a lot of health issues.
Yeah.
Doctors had insisted that she sing sitting down. So at that point in her career, there was a tall chair, the stool, the back for her to sit.
Hmm.
Well, she came out and sat down, and the stool ricketed like this.
Problem.
Now, you'd think in the San Francisco Opera House, someone could have found another stool for her to sit on. They didn't. Nobody helped her. So she
No.
just stood up and held onto the piano and did her best. And afterwards, she was so upset, not that there wasn't a person to help her. She was upset that she felt she let her audience down, that because she was on her feet and holding on, she wasn't delivering her best. And I was there. I mean, I'm telling you, I saw
That's a
this
star.
firsthand.
That's a star.
Yeah, that was what upset her. Not how she was treated, not how she treated the audience. She said, those people spent so much money to see me.
To come and
I
see
let
you.
them down.
Hmm. That's a star.
She took her work very
Very.
seriously, and she took her audiences even more seriously, because she was really aware without them, there was no career.
That's right.
And that is not the norm. I'm not saying it never happens. The biggest stars, I think, have a similar attitude. But there are a lot of people who walk through stuff. Ella never walked through anything. Hey, being on here with you today, this took a while to put together.
And you
And,
were proud of this.
and I was prepared to talk about 97 different things, because I want to be my best. I want to make sure our friends out there who are watching or listening
Yes.
are having a
Yes.
good time. Otherwise, why should I be here if I can't make
Yes.
people happy? I love making people happy. I pray every day Let me be a blessing to everybody. That's all of you folks out there too. Let me be a blessing. So here we go. Here we are.
That's why I love you and why I want you to keep coming back, because I love, I don't know about everybody, I love hearing these old stories and getting truth and facts versus all the things you hear. Let's stay. I want to, because we're getting close to time, but I wanted to talk a little bit more about is there anyone out presently that is an actor, singer, performer that the Mertz, the Ricardos, Miss Fitzgerald would say that that's a star and they're going to be around for the next 35, 45, 50 years, and I'm still going to hear their name? I haven't seen a lot of that. I've seen every once in a while. I am intrigued to, like, wow, who's that? They're strong. Where is that? Do we still have that? Is there hope that we're going to?
Oh, sure. Ricky, of course, sides with Latino performers. He's a big fan of Antonio Banderas. Okay. He's a big fan of John Leguizamo. He thinks he's hysterically funny.
I love John
Leguizamo. Javier Bardem. He's a big supporter of other Latinos in show. Always was. Ricky was always a supporter of other Latino acts. No jealousy. A little jealousy, perhaps, with Ricardo Montalban and Fernando Lamas, because they were always up for the same parts in movies, but still a supporter. Fred and Ethel. Fred, for the same reasons, loves Irish performers. So anyone that brings a little bit of Ireland to their act, Conan O'Brien, like he's a big Conan O'Brien fan. Right. Ethel, her fandom is more about Broadway, because that's what Ethel Mertz wanted to be. Ethel Merman, that's who she wanted to be. And so Ethel Mertz was very fond of people like Ethel Merman and Mary Martin. And I think today she would bow her head to Betty Buckley. I think Betty Buckley is more like what Ethel Mertz wanted to be. So anytime Betty Buckley's performing anywhere, Ethel's right there, either watching it on television or getting a ticket in New York to go to see her. Lucy Ricardo is more into the glamour pusses. So she really likes the women who glam it up, because that's how she sees herself. And so all the ladies, like Halle Berry, the women who can walk a red carpet, will bring this whole conversation around, who can walk the red carpet with style, who can wear even unusual designs, but wear them well. And Lucy Ricardo was a big fan of Joan Rivers and Joan Rivers' red carpet stuff and her talking about what people wore after the fact. That was like Lucy was intently watching to see what Joan Rivers had to say about that stuff. Because although Lucy Ricardo realizes she's not these people, compared to Ethel Mertz and Carolyn Appleby and Betty Ramsey, she's the glamour puss of her crowd. So it's like the big stars, there's Lucy, and then there's her crowd who are jealous of Lucy for her glamour. Make sense?
That's interesting. It makes a lot of sense. And seeing you talk about them and how, how they think and how they feel about, the what's going on the carpets now and how stars are viewed even. And everybody thinks they're a star. I mean, I was listening to some show, and I guess because of numbers, the person that was delivering the show, or the person on the podcast, was talking, and there wasn't any really experience or something. It's like, they were talking about a subject that on a professional level, you would have to have this kind of certification in order to really know the subject and be able to be an expert in talking about the subject. And they didn't, but they had all these numbers, and I'm like, wow. So you're telling me you don't even have to know what you're talking about anymore to have a bunch of numbers? It's all popularity now. I don't understand. What do they think about that subject? What do they think?
I think
Numbers.
all four, Lucy, Ricky, Fred, and Ethel, and I will speak on behalf of Ella and the other people I've written about. Talent is talent. If you're going to be in front of any kind of a camera and microphone, you got to have the goods. The ability to have a podcast. I don't mean someone like yourself. LA Talk Radio is wonderful. I've been a guest on several shows on LA Talk Radio in the past. I'm talking about the people who aren't known for anything particularly, but feel that somehow if they just put their puss in front of a camera and talk, they're fascinating. And they can talk about anything and fascinate people. No, you're not fascinating. You have to have talent. Osiris, there is a talent to what you do. If you didn't have it, you'd be boring. And you're certainly not. I wouldn't be here if you were boring.
That's right.
And I wouldn't do as much broadcasting as I do. You know, I host 2 podcasts. Mm-hmm. Geoffrey Mark Plays Ella and Still Toking. I'm a co-host on that one. But I'm a guest. You know, I've probably done in the last 3 weeks 30 hours of broadcasting. Mm-hmm. I hope it's because I'm interesting and glamorous and maybe not today, terribly funny, but funny. And
funny enough.
I know what I'm talking about. I know my audience, and I'm here to make people happy. On Still Toking, it's an adult show. The language flies. I know how to do that. On shows where it's a family show, I know how to be funny without, about, 7 years ago or so, I was hosting the Palm Springs International Comedy Festival. And we did a panel of women in comedy, not stand-up people, but women who are funny with scripts, funny ladies who do funny roles.
Okay.
And we had Ruta Lee and Joyce Bulifant, and my darling Dawn Wells was Marianne on Gilligan's Island, and Allison Arngrim from Little House on the Prairie. And I asked them, as times have changed and the scripts have gotten naughty, how do you feel about doing naughty stuff? And the ladies gave their responses. And then they asked me how I felt about it. I said, well, I've never actually said a 4-letter word on a stage in my entire life. I've always worked clean. Now, I'm going to have to clean this up for our LA Talk Radio audience because I'm respectful.
And we are really close to time. So we've got like about 2 minutes.
And Ruta said to me, Jeff, for corn's sake, go out tonight and say, and she F-bombed me, I want you to go out tonight and do that because you're over 40 and it's time you talk like a man. And the audience got hysterical. And that's the end of the story.
I love you. As usual, Geoffrey Mark is on the mark, people. That's the whole point. I would love, and I'm doing it. I'm going to keep bringing him back and forth because he's one of my favorite people now. And I know that, I don't want it to sound like I'm a clout chaser, but if anybody I was going to chase to be around, it would certainly be you. I love your style. I wanted to talk about the white in between the red. I think that's so cool. But, that kind of frame you got going there in the front. But before we leave, shout out to the sponsor, Kevin Pike, Coal Banker, 818-571-1508, Senior Probate Real Estate Specialist.
Yay.
Kevin, don't forget to like, share, subscribe to the channel. Also, Geoffrey Mark's channel. Thank Geoffrey for coming on. And don't forget to smile. Local shout out to J&M Cleaners are Jose Armando. Ooh. I told him I'd give him a quick shout out for people to know about him. And don't forget to smile. It works wonders. And don't forget to like. I like you for being brave and listening to my show. And I love you for always supporting us. LA Talk Radio. Shout out to Sam Hassan. And Geoffrey, thanks for coming on the show. We'll bring you back again and again until we can't do it anymore. I love you.
God bless.
Bye-bye.
Have a happy.
Bye.
You are listening to 15 Minutes, the show with Osiris Munir, only on LA Talk Radio.